Coming up now in your spoiler-free wrestling news rundown, Bret Hart, Earl Hebner, the Queen of Extreme Francine, and more have commented about the allegations against Vince McMahon. We've also got news on how the WrestleMania 40 main event came to be, and we've also got an update on just how long CM Punk is going to be out of action after having surgery for a torn tricep. All that and more coming up now. All right, everyone. There are new details available regarding the allegations against Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE. One of the aspects of this story that we covered in a previous video involves Ashley Massaro's allegations that she was sexually assaulted on a WWE tour of Kuwait in 2007. She had written a sworn affidavit that was released by her lawyer after Massaro's death in 2019, where she alleged that Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis put pressure on her to keep these allegations quiet, to not go public with them, so as to not damage WWE's relationship with the U.S. military. So now, up on your screen now, that's just a tweet from News Nation. They've had a few different stories up on this. And they spoke with Cara Pipia, who was a friend of Ashley Massaro, and she backed up many of the allegations that were in Massaro's sworn affidavit. So this is what Cara said on News Nation about her friend Ashley's allegations against Vince McMahon. She said, Ashley spoke with Vince McMahon many times. Vince had his daughter, Stephanie McMahon, take his place because she was a female, a woman, and to make Ashley comfortable, and they just played with her. They play with her because everything that Stephanie had made her feel comfortable and safe about, as soon as they walked into this boardroom meeting, Ashley was on her own completely. And she was threatened, and there was no compassion, there was no sympathy, there was nothing. They also asked Pipia if she feels what happened to Massaro in Kuwait contributed to her death in 2019. Pipia responded, 99%, absolutely. So more people have come out and spoken about the allegations against Vince McMahon. And one of those people is Renee Dupree, who you might remember was a WWE wrestler for a time. He was in La Resistance. He has a podcast, and he brought up that Jackie Gayda, who was his former wife, well, anyways, up on her screen now is what Renee Dupree said on his Cafe de Renee podcast. He said, you remember when we had Charlie Haas on here and he told the story about how Johnny Ace, that's Laurinaitis, fired him and Jackie the day they got back from their honeymoon. Well, let's just say Vince also made a pass at Jackie, which she declined. And you see what happened once her and Charlie got married. If you listen to this story, it seems like if you don't put Vince over and you don't boost his ego, he gets mad at you and he takes it out on your career. And there were actually some very similar statements made by other people in wrestling about Vince McMahon recently. One person, Dutch Mantel, said that he remembered Vince McMahon giving somebody only a $100 payoff for WrestleMania because that person had done something to annoy him. Another person who commented on the Vince McMahon allegations recently is Bret Hart, who obviously has a very complicated history with Vince McMahon. So Bret Hart spoke with Slate magazine recently, and he really opened up about his reaction to the Vince McMahon allegations. One of the things he said, I don't know if we'll get to the quote, but he said that the text messages in Janelle Grant's lawsuit certainly sounded like Vince. And a lot of people have said something very similar. So Bret Hart spoke with Slate magazine, and some of his comments are up on your screen now. He said, I'm going to speak my truth. Hart said over the phone from his home in Calgary, I'm not worried about Vince's feelings. He never cared about mine. I don't have any problem with everybody kicking his head around the parking lot. I'm okay with the truth coming out. Hart continued to talk about some of the allegations that were in Janelle Grant's lawsuit. He said, when you get that vision in your head, you go, that's messed up. It's too sick and disgusting to really imagine. But at the same time, the lewd text messages included in the suit, allegedly sent by McMahon after the incident, have a convincingly familiar ring. So this is Bret Hart saying, those text messages, they sound like Vince McMahon. He said, They sound like Vince. So Bret Hart, this is a guy who read through the Janelle Grant lawsuit, who knew Vince McMahon for decades, decades and decades and decades. Bret was in WWE, I think in 1984. He got there. Bret Hart read those text messages and went, yeah, that sounds like Vince. Bret continued, I don't think this is the only incident of this kind of predatory behavior. I think you'll find that it's everywhere in WWE. As for why Bret Hart never spoke up about this, he said it's kind of like The Godfather. You never know when a guy like Vince will be your enemy again over something you say or do. He's the Teflon guy. You just can't seem to get anything on him. He's just too powerful, got too much money. And it's clear if you read this whole article, Hart has to wrestle with the fact that the person who made him, the person who made him famous, the person who made him rich, the person who aided in his success is essentially a monster. And so Hart continued, it's like Jeffrey Dahmer, Harvey Weinstein, or Jeffrey Epstein. Vince will be a joke. Joke might not be the right word there, but he continued, he'll be used for humor, and you'll shake your head at the shock value of some joke about what did Vince McMahon do, and he'll always be associated with this story, especially as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Hart continued, he said, I always had respect for him. Now it's tainted. I'm embarrassed that I thought so highly of him. Hart also mentioned that he has apologized to the WWE's first ever female referee, Rita Chatterton, who came forward in 1992 with allegations that Vince McMahon sexually assaulted her. And at the time Hart said he didn't believe it. He said, I just didn't believe it. I figured Vince had too much at stake to ever do something like that. And Bret would continue to say that he apologized to Chatterton a few months ago when he saw her at a convention. Hart said, I apologize from the bottom of my heart. And I said, I believe that what happened to you, and I apologize. I was wrong. And so Hart concluded with this paragraph here. He said, I think despite all of the issues I ever had with Vince, I know deep down I always respected him. But now, knowing what kind of a weirdo he became, I have absolutely zero respect for him. Hart wrote in a text message after our conversation, I do not think I could ever shake his hand if he extended it. Too creepy. Earl Hebner also weighed in on the allegations against Vince McMahon recently. And this was, where did he say this? He was at a virtual signing, an autograph signing, and he was asked about the allegations against McMahon. And Hebner said, the only thing I can say is I hope justice is served. Between Vince and John, they are in a heap of trouble. I think Johnny is trying to jump ship on Vince now. They're both in this thing together. Vince knows what he was doing. Johnny knew about what he was doing, or Johnny knew what he was doing. That's all I can say. I can say more and really bury them, but I'm just going to wait and let justice be served. And more women have come out and talked about their relationships with Vince McMahon and feeling as though they had to give in to McMahon's advances in order to advance in the company. Francine, the Queen of Extreme, obviously had a great career with ECW. She was also briefly in WWE's version of ECW when they brought it back in 2006. However, Francine was never really pushed much in that version of ECW. So she spoke about a story about Vince McMahon on an episode of her Eyes Up Here podcast. And these quotes are from SEScoops.com. Francine said, I mean, when I worked there were stories floating around. And again, when I worked there, I was told by somebody higher up that if you want to be seen, go get a bottle of oil, rubbing oil all over my, and knocking on Vince's door and going in there and leaning on his desk and trying to get notice. That's what I was told to do. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. And another ECW original, Dawn Marie, spoke about a diva search contestant quitting after the company, after she was harassed by someone high up in the company. She was asked if she had ever witnessed anything appropriate between talent and management backstage, and she said, no, well, see it or hear, two different things. I never saw anything. There was a girl from the diva search, really nice girl. And she would come to me for a lot of advice because she was getting calls from the main office and she was just freaked out. You always hear the stories, but you don't know, right? You don't know the truth. But then when she was telling me the truth, she was so scared and broken, she ended up leaving. That's the only time that I've ever encountered an issue was that one person. So somebody from the Diva Search quit as they were getting harassed from the office in the same way that Jackie Gayda says she was, in the same way Ashley Massaro says that she was. So this is obviously a pattern of behavior that's gone on for decades, since the 1980s. The 1980s were a very, very long time ago. And kind of interesting, Ted DiBiase also commented on the allegations against Vince McMahon. And I thought this was interesting because Ted DiBiase played the character that Vince McMahon has often said would have been the one that he played, or that he would have come up with for himself, the $1 Million Man, the guy who's got all the money and can get away with whatever he wants because he's rich. Oh, God, that is the character that McMahon played in real life. But he wanted to play it in WWE. So Ted DiBiase, on the allegations against Vince McMahon, he said, "I've been kind of sad recently with all the stuff going on with Vince. That's heart-wrenching, really. I don't know. It's kind of like it's a double-edged sword there. I mean, one part of me is like, if it hadn't been for Vince, where wrestling has gone would have never happened. By the same token, when you look at some of the things that he's been accused of doing, I don't know. It's just sad. I can't say anything in any other way. It's just sad. I mean, it makes me wonder, what are his children thinking when they read that stuff? It's just sad, man. And on coming to terms with the allegations, it's just, yeah, leaves me speechless. It's kind of like this. The $1 Million Man is going to say, there are some things money can't buy, and money cannot buy integrity. All right. In a previous video, we were discussing what exactly happened backstage regarding the WrestleMania 40 main event. So if you recall, a few weeks ago, The Rock made a surprise appearance on SmackDown, and it appeared as though in storyline, Cody Rhodes was stepping aside from finishing his story in order to allow Roman Reigns to face to allow The Rock to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. However, not even a week after that segment took place, it appeared as though WWE pivoted from that idea and was going back to the idea of having Cody Rhodes choose to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. So we have a little bit more information about this situation, which came out in last Friday's Wrestling Observer newsletter. So it had previously been reported by some insider news sites that the idea of The Rock coming in and appearing to take Cody's spot was being done to make Cody an even bigger baby face than he'd ever been before. Whereas other sites reported that, well, WWE didn't really anticipate The Rock was going to get as booed, as much backlash as he did get. So now from the Wrestling Observer newsletter on Friday, Dave Meltzer wrote that WWE did indeed pivot from their plans after the negative backlash to The Rock, and it was apparently The Rock's idea for him to turn heel. So the story here goes that when they did that SmackDown segment, the feeling was that when Cody stepped aside, that he was then endorsing The Rock to go take on Roman Reigns. They felt that Cody endorsing the match, Cody being the one to introduce it, basically, would eliminate any backlash against The Rock and get people hyped up for that match. And the way Cody Rhodes said, "I'm coming for everything you have, but not at WrestleMania," they felt would have led the audience to believe, okay, well, we will get Cody at some point. So, according to what Dave Meltzer wrote in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, however, the backlash to The Rock, the "We Want Cody" movement, the chants of "Rocky sucks" on Monday Night Raw, all led to The Rock going to WWE and saying, okay, we need to change course. I will go heel. We'll go back to Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. Now, what this means for The Rock at WrestleMania 40, nobody knows. It on screen, it looks like they might be building up a match where Roman Reigns and The Rock team up to take on Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, but that's just speculation based on what we've seen online. But what we now have confirmed is that this was never an elaborate meta-level plan to make Cody Rhodes a martyr, to turn Cody Rhodes into the new Daniel Bryan. This was a case of where they thought what they were doing was going to get over fine with fans, and when it didn't, it was The Rock who made the call to go heel. And now we have 1996 Nation of Domination Rock, or as so many people are putting it, Hollywood Rock, when he came back to WWE after having some success in the movie industry. So regardless, where the path to WrestleMania goes from here, nobody knows. We can all just sit back and enjoy the ride. Okay, so in a previous video, we spoke about TNA President Scott D'Amore being released from the company. We mentioned a little bit about what we've heard in terms of why he was released. I guess there was a butting of the heads between Scott D'Amore and Anthem Sports and Entertainment over the budget for TNA Wrestling, how much they were spending. Could they make offers to guys like Will Ospreay, CM Punk, etc.? With Anthem Sports and Entertainment just kind of wanting TNA to stay within a budget and produce the television shows for Access TV for the Fight Network. Not really interested in the promotion going or taking the next step to another level, so to speak. So TNA Wrestling, members of the roster and of the management team, penned a letter to Anthem's CEO, Len Asper, just basically saying that they believe Scott D'Amore is the guy to lead this company, to lead TNA Wrestling. However, they noted that they were not aware of all of the facts regarding the case. It is also said that Scott D'Amore, after learning that he was likely not to be with TNA Wrestling for much longer, made an offer to buy the company, and that was not well received. It was just a simple no counter offer, nothing. So TNA Wrestling, I won't read the entire letter, but I'll put it in the show notes. It reads a lot like Tommy Dreamer probably had a lot to do with this. This is just speculation, but it does read a little bit like one of his promos. Basically, the letter just says, we, the wrestlers at TNA, we believe that Scott D'Amore is the guy to lead this company. However, they noted in the letter that they're not aware of all the facts around why D'Amore was released. So there's not much new going on about this, except for that TNA Wrestling is going to be back filming episodes and running the No Surrender show on Friday. And this is going to be the first taping that they've done since Scott D'Amore was fired. It's the first taping that they've done in a month. So it's going to be interesting to see what the backstage environment is like, what the vibe is like backstage. We should also learn a little bit more about what the future structure with this organization is going to be, who's running the creative, things like that. We should find out a little bit more as TNA goes into Louisiana this weekend for No Surrender. Okay, so that was the big news that has been going on in wrestling. Let's go over some of the smaller news items. So CM Punk was backstage at UFC 298, and he was asked about a timeline for his return. He actually said that they were looking at about 6 to 8 months. And that is a little longer than what had been reported previously. I think it was PW Insider was saying he was looking at about 4 to 6 months. So Punk in this interview said, looking to get back around 6 to 8 months. So the likelihood of him coming back for SummerSlam, it's looking like it's a little less likely now than it was before, but we'll see. If he's not back in time for SummerSlam, he at least should be back in time for Survivor Series and the build to WrestleMania 41. We also have a positive update regarding the health of Steve Mongo McMichael. And this is coming actually from the son of Walter Payton, who would have played with McMichael on the Bears. And so he wrote, update on Steve McMichael, great news. Mongo is feeling better and he's responding well to the antibiotics. The hope is to have him back at home on Tuesday. Please keep sending up your thoughts and prayers for Steve and his family. WWE and Fanatics also announced a first-of-its-kind fan experience for WrestleMania week from Thursday, April 4th through Monday, April 8th at the Pennsylvania Convention Center in Philadelphia. It's going to be like an immersive fan experience thing. So here's WWE's press release. They wrote, WWE World at WrestleMania will feature a variety of immersive experiences for fans, including a central main stage that will host roundtable discussions with top WWE superstars, a WWE 2K24 gaming tournament, live podcast recordings, live memorabilia and autograph sales through Fanatics Live, and the largest WWE superstore in WrestleMania history. The event will also feature exclusive merchandise, autograph sessions, and meet and greets with WWE superstars and legends, in addition to immersive exhibits and memorabilia honoring WrestleMania's 40-year history. And the promotion run by AFA of the Wild Samoans, WXW, is going to be shutting its doors. He had been running this for 27 years. They write, however, AFA has been dealing with a heart condition, as well as what they write here, mild, moderate vascular dementia with Alzheimer's and other health complications. So the promotion wrote on Sunday, "Good morning, WXW Universe. Our wrestler, staff, family, and fans are all heartbroken and reeling from the announcement last night from our beloved founder and pops, Alpha the Wild Samoan, that Saturday, April 13th, will be the last WXW wrestling show. Instead of Extreme War, that event will now be called the Grand Finale. After 27 years, WXW will be opening our doors one last time. This news was not easy to hear last night due to Alpha's serious heart condition, his mild, moderate vascular dementia with Alzheimer's and other health complications. He felt that April would be the perfect time to take our final bows and close an amazing 27-year chapter. Being that he is the heart and soul of WXW, his family tearfully agreed, and his wrestlers, though very sad, support his decision. We'll see you one more time in person Saturday." So, sad news there. Some injury updates. You may have noticed on AEW Rampage this week that Sammy Guevara came off the top rope with a shooting star press and his leg collided with Jeff Hardy's face. So Brian Alvarez wrote that the word from within AEW is that Jeff Hardy suffered a broken nose last night, but not a concussion. So that's good news that he just suffered a broken nose. Some other injury updates. Fightful reported that both Julia Hart and Wheeler Yuta are dealing with minor injuries at the moment. They've been out of action for a little while, but aren't expected to be out of action for long. And another update, we've got QT Marshall, who announced that he was leaving AEW in November. He had actually wrote that the company was going in a different direction. Well, now it seems he is returning to AEW in the executive role he had previously held. However, he is not going to be back as an in-ring talent for the promotion, but QT Marshall back working as an executive for AEW. And WWE Raw tonight is live from the Honda Center in Anaheim, California. Just a little under 11,000 expected in the building tonight. That's basically, it's a virtual sellout, basically at the Honda Center in Anaheim. Now, in terms of what you can expect on the show, there was some rumors, there was some speculation that The Rock was going to be involved in tonight's show. He had previously teased that he had something big in store for February 19th. However, earlier today, a press release was sent out that what The Rock was referring to was just a new version for his Zoa Energy. They have a new drink out called BDE, Big Dwayne Energy. So that's what he was likely referring to. So let's go over the lineup for the show. We will see DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa team up with the Awesome Truth, Miz and R-Truth, up against the Judgment Day, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, and JD McDonough. So we'll see if R-Truth still feels he's in the Judgment Day faction tonight. We'll have a last chance battle royal for the final women's elimination chamber spot. The wrestlers that have been announced for this battle royal include Zoe Stark, Nishin, Shayna Baszler, Indy Hartwell. So we will see who will punch their ticket to Perth, Australia tonight. The Intercontinental Championship will also be on the line as Gunther defends against Jey Uso. We will see Chad Gable of Alpha Academy go up against Ivar with Valhalla in his corner. And a big match featuring Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre. All that tonight on Raw. And that's going to do it for this video, everyone. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you again next video.